Dion, the Dion era is always going to be known as, I think, one of the fun flings as far as a Heat fan, but it really did turn sour quickly for him because of health reasons, and then really just because, the Heat, I think, falling in love with that team that made that run of 30-11, it was short-lived. A lot of those guys who they did invest in, and that even goes to the year back, not just the Dion JJ tandem, but it goes back to Hassan Whiteside, Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson even gave voices. They all got fat cat syndrome. And
I'm not taking that because he said it. That makes it accurate. Get out of here.
Yeah, why? Hold on. You're always saying that I'm jumping to conclusions all the time. Now I have somebody on the record with it. Now I actually have two people on the record with it. And so how am I not correct with this?
All right.
Listen, a lot of these guys came from tough parts of the league that they weren't drafted. They had to go play internationally. They were G League guys. Really, Dion Waiters was the only guy who was a lottery guy, who was like a top drafted guy.
Yeah.
Everybody else was kind of a cast off. Dion was a cast off for different reasons. He was a cast off for being Dion Waiters. So, Dion Waiters has this new piece in the Players Tribune article. Players Tribune. He writes a new article, and it's done in bullet points. It's a very clean read. It goes from, I think, 1 to 24 or something like that of just points that Dion Waiters is making. I get it. It was 24. It was to honor the legacy of Kobe Bryant. And so the only rule is no bull bleep. So we start with Dion Waiters. And Dion Waiters starts off talking about that he is, that even the hardest mother bleepers, Leroy, in the world go through depression. No cap. That was his. So, he's just talking about, he went through tough times in his life, but he goes through depression. Just like you, I have anxiety, and the last year and a half I've been through it. Then the next point 2, the plane incident in Miami, it's on me. I own that. It was idiotic on my behalf, point blank period. What's crazy is my whole life I've been a leader. I'm not a follower. Pat knows me. He knows I don't do drugs, but sometimes you're going through dark times and you could fall into a trap and you do things that you never do in your right mind.
I guess. You picked the wrong time to,
especially after 2 suspensions.
Right. Look, here's the problem with Dion. And it happens. Like, he thought he was in a place where he could just relax and play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then things started like, oh, where you're not in shape, oh, where you're not this. And part of it is you have athletes, like some guys, like I would say LeBron's one of those athletes that no matter what, they could run all day. Sure. Right? You have some guys who are like that their physical makeup allows them to run all day. You have other guys who have to work at it. Dion's one of those guys that has to work at it. And he has shown that he's not afraid to work at it. Now I give him a foot injury where he can't work at it, right? And he goes back to old habits. Now fighting through that is tough, not to mention with all the shaming that people just assume that because you're an athlete, you're just supposed to be in this top physical shape. And there are guys that really have to work hard to maintain that shape. And without the ability to do it, it's tough.
Yeah, he goes, point 6. Instagram is one big bleep show. It's a trap. You could score 40 and you're a hero. Everybody loves you. Then you could score 10 and the hate you get is just pathetic. Grown-ass men making fake accounts, taking the time to really do that, talking bleep about another person's weight, not knowing what they're really going through. And for me, it's just like, look at yourself in the mirror, bro. We're all humans, right? I'm trying. We're all trying. And then he says, everybody in the NBA is going to tell you, I don't look at the comments. F them haters. It doesn't affect me. They're lying.
Well, yeah, that's true. People care, but we're caught up in and you're famous for this one,
Me?
right? Yes. If you don't like somebody, like most people, and to Dion's point, like people think you had a good game or a bad game based on numbers, right? They base it all on numbers. So if he scores 40, he had a great night. If he scores 10, he didn't. Especially if your team loses. They want the 40 points. You take it one step farther. If you don't like the guy and they score 40, them some fake numbers, right? You take it and work the good numbers or the good games into bad games. So when Blake, for example, when Blake Bortles went 30, what he went like 27-5 or something like that.
It was like 35-12.
35, right? And what did you say?
Empty stats.
Right.
But I watched the games. Every game he's down 3 touchdowns.
But I'm just saying.
But you watched the games this past year?
Your ability to do that has nothing to do with, you still got to throw a pass, right? You still got to complete the pass. You still got to be accurate. Those things don't change. The circumstances change.
This will speak to yourself. So Dion goes on. He says, I played a year and a half on a broken foot, and you ain't hearing me crying. Well, I mean, that's debatable. It was surgery or the insoles, man. I picked insoles because I was trying to get us to the playoffs. We knew what it was. I sacrificed my body for the Miami Heat, and I'd do it again. Hell yeah, I'd do it again. But my body just broke down to the point where I couldn't do much in a day. Then I couldn't keep the weight off no matter what and no matter how much I tried. Then we all know what comes after that. Quote, Dion's fat. Dion's out of shape. Dion don't care. I've made a million mistakes in my life, but not caring will never, ever, ever, ever be one of them. You heard? This is business with a capital B, bro. I'll leave it at that. It's a business. Don't ever let them tell you different. Anyway, even if I was fat, I was still getting buckets. You feel me?
Yeah. KFC, Popeyes.
Come on, man.
But
You weren't. But that's the thing, though. He wasn't getting buckets. Like, one of the big problems is Dion couldn't get on the floor, man.
Well, that's a different. It's tough. Look, Dion is considered a knucklehead, and in his efforts to, like, some guys don't have a democratic way of portraying how they feel or explaining how they feel, right? It comes across in a way like, say, Dion or Hassan. It comes across as mopey, complaining, or whatever, right? And I can tell you what Dion thought. Dion thought, hey, I'm gonna, fight like hell to get back. Then when I get back, I can get into some kind of shape, working my way back with a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there, and build and get back to where I was. That was probably what his whole thought was. Then in Miami, he'd say, no, player. You got to be that tip-top shape, Dion, before we even put you on the floor.
And that's the interesting thing, though, is like, so his last point really on the Heat is, I still got love for Pat. Let's put that on the record. I still got love for Pat. Still got all the respect in the world for Mickey Arison. When it was good, But even before the season started, we knew it was over. Obviously, no mention of Coach Spo, but I'm sure that they had their back and forths and they were kind of done with that bleep. But for both of them, I think they were both probably at that point.
But I'm more. The worst thing in the world is when a player thinks. I won't say that Dion thought he was owed something, right? Mm-hmm. But he thought he earned a spot or a position in that organization to where he would be able to get that back. But in sports is weird, man. Sports is weird because if somebody else comes through and start doing the same thing, then we're in a different spot. And that's kind of happened with Dion. They had to adjust. They had to move on. They had to find different ways of doing things. And then they struck gold. Okay, and they're like, man.
In fairness to the Heat, though, all right, I get what you're saying. isn't the reward for sacrificing his body is they gave him a $50 million contract knowing he had to get surgery, thinking that he was going to stay in shape?
Everybody, look, so you expected him to stay in shape during that?
Hold on. He wasn't in shape this year. He had a grand opportunity. How many times have we talked to Ira Windeman? How many times have we talked about, man, Dion had the chance here. Dion had the chance here. Dion had the chance here.
Of course.
And his response to having an opportunity was, nope, I knew it was over before the year started. They were holding it against me, where he could have went and gotten his own opportunity.
Here,
even if we're talking about the years where he wasn't in shape, he wasn't physically able to get in shape. This year he was, and it still wasn't to the point where he got himself in the position to be undeniable for the Heat.
Oh, okay.
He got one game against the Clippers.
Here, but my point is, you're missing my point. I'm not saying anything that you're saying is wrong. I'm saying that his mindset going into this year was great. But the second he saw that, he wasn't going to get the opportunities he thought he was going to get, then he started moping. Mm-hmm. And then when they actually got the opportunities, he wasn't ready. And it's a mindset that, look, he was probably expecting more of an opportunity. He wanted them to throw him more of a bone. They didn't do it for whatever reason. And in sports, you have to learn the lesson that nothing's promised to you. And so from that standpoint, it is his fault that when that opportunity presented itself, however small, however, minute it was on him. But at the same time, right, when you go into, and here's what happens, okay? Denny Green would say all the time, and so would Jimmy Johnson, if Troy Aikman falls asleep in the meeting, I'm going to nudge him and say, psst, wake up.
Yep.
But if Joe's special teams guy falls asleep, I might cut him. And that's sports. And so when you think that you're Troy Aikman and your team is looking at you as that other guy, how they handle situations and how you think they should handle situations are totally different. And I think that's where Dion is in basketball. Dion's at a place in basketball where he thinks, maybe it's because where he got drafted, maybe it's because of the fact of how he puts up numbers or how he can score. Maybe he views himself as a Troy Aikman when in actuality he's actually somewhere in the middle and teams don't treat him that way. And that's the part that's frustrating for him.
I guess, man. But the thing is, he has on the same team where they're asking him, or he has the opportunity to do something like be a reserve who could do a lot of things for them. On that same team, he's got a guy like Goran, and Goran's like, has actual accolades in the league, and you hear nothing from him. And that's a guy they actually tried to trade in the offseason. Like, if anybody's going to come in all south, like, Goran's going to be like, I ain't coming in here. You guys try to trade me to the Mavericks. But instead, he's just like, all right, 6-man. Going to go for 6-man of the year. How long and how many times are we going to do this thing where it's like, I'm a bucket getter. I get this. I get buckets. I score buckets. And it's like, all right, man. But, it took a team that to sign you that is shadow run by your agent and is actually run by your former agent to give you a chance to actually, if anybody's going to give you one more chance, it would have been that team. And it took them how long, how many workouts before they actually gave Dion like a 10-day?
Yeah. No, again, I'm not, look, the way the situation played out, I'm not saying it's all on Dion. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to explain to people how sometimes you could fall in that, the way it played out, right? I could see Dion's side of it, not saying that he's right, because you're not owed anything You're not promised anything. Whenever you're not playing, the coach doesn't get a pass for not winning basketball games. So he has to find other ways to win. Now, when those other guys get in and play, if they get on a little run and then you come back healthy, there's no promise that the coach is going to just go back. Ask Drew Bledsoe.
I will say for Dion, though, he should immediately forget about those bet on yourself and double down T-shirts, and he should immediately start printing. Even when I was fat, I'm getting buckets. That's a T-shirt.
I'm getting that shirt.
Good line. I mean, that's gonna sell to the fat boys. I'd wear that shirt.
Hey, yeah. I mean, it will. But was Dion really fat or just his face? Like, he was big, but he wasn't like.
I was at the game where he came and played against Kawhi. I saw him without his shirt on, without his shirt on before the game. I'm like, hey, he doesn't look that fat.
If we ever have another Heat Media tournament, I'm wearing that shirt when we're playing.
We'll get your headlines next.